So grade 12, tackling absolute and comparative advantage. Let's have a look at what countries can produce using the same amount of resources. So remember, we're talking about the same amount of resources. So if we look at this table, the USA can produce 39 apples, or it can produce 13 smartphones. South Korea can produce 24 apples, or it can produce 12 smartphones. So if we look at this table, to figure out absolute advantage, all we have to do is say which country can produce more with the same amount of resources. In this case, it's easy. Apples, USA can produce 39, South Korea can produce 24. Which one is more? 39 apples. If we look at the smartphones, again, using the same amount of resources, the USA can produce 13 smartphones, whereas South Korea can produce 12. So, which number is higher? Obviously 13. That means the USA has the absolute advantage. In this example, the USA has the absolute advantage in both. What you have to remember is the USA is not going to produce both. Why? Because resources are scarce. So they're going to have to pick one of these products to produce. So let's move to comparative advantage. Again, we're using the USA versus France, and we're looking at airplanes versus cruise ships. So in order to figure out the comparative advantage, what you have to do is you have to figure out the opportunity cost of producing each product for each country. So if we look at the USA, we need to figure out what is the opportunity cost to produce one airplane. So how many cruise ships does it have to give up in order to produce one plane? In order to do that, we say 2 cruise ships divided by 20 airplanes means 0.1 cruise ship. In order to produce one airplane, the USA must give up a tenth of a cruise ship. Let's look now at France. So France can produce 12 airplanes for the cost of 2 cruise ships. How many cruise ships does France have to give up in order to produce one airplane? 0.17. So France has to give up more cruise ships in order to produce one airplane. So the USA would have the advantage in producing airplanes. If we look at the cost of producing cruise ships, for the USA, they can produce 2 cruise ships for the cost of 20 airplanes. So it costs them 10 airplanes to produce one cruise ship. France, if we look at 12 airplanes to produce 2 cruise ships. 12 divided by 2 means that France has to give up 6 airplanes in order to produce one cruise ship. That means France has to give up less airplanes in order to produce a cruise ship. So France has the comparative advantage in producing cruise ships.